Hi, I'm Mark and I'm passionate about English, and welcome to another mini lesson in August. We're coming to the end of the mini lessons soon, and I'll be recording the courses starting in September. As I've said before, the courses are gonna be or comprise of 4 lessons in each course. And each lesson will be, well, I've been saying about 3 hours, but actually they're going to be at least 3 hours. I'm passionate about English, so I'm not worried about how long the lesson is. I just really want to help you learn English. And it's a lot of fun for me doing these lessons. So that's great. Okay, so this lesson is actually going to be the first mini lesson looking at songs. And because in July I was looking at Beatles songs, I was asking a Beatles question and humming the beginning or part of a Beatles song in each lesson. I'm going to look at a few Beatles songs. But what I really would like to ask you is if you have any songs that you really, really like or love, to request that I explain the songs. Sometimes songs are difficult to understand, the lyrics or actually the meaning behind the song. And, well, there's these Beatles songs that I'm going to look at today. I put into Google the name of the song and then I put in meaning, and it's very, very interesting, and I learnt a lot from looking at the meaning behind these songs, things I didn't know before, and I would recommend you do that as well. So I'm going to look at 3 Beatles songs. I was thinking of doing Lady Gaga, Born This Way. But I will wait for you to comment. Just put a comment after today's lesson which song you'd like me to look at in the courses. And or even if it's just an expression. I'd like the Facebook page to become kind of a forum, so that you start interacting with other people learning English. That would be really, really great. Okay, so the first song for today is Let It Be. And Let It Be was a song mentioned by Sonia in a mini lesson. She said it's her favorite Beatles song. And yeah, it's one of those songs which are kind of anthemic. So Paul McCartney, if he's invited to do something at the Olympics or some other big event, he'll often do that song and also Hey Jude. So they are, in a way, 2 of the most famous Beatles songs, and they were both written by Paul McCartney. So I will need to take my glasses off for this. And what I also recommend you do before maybe you pause the video now, is you listen to the song on YouTube, or maybe you already have it, and even you print out the lyrics. All you need to do is go to Google and put the name of the song, in this case Let It Be, and then lyrics, and you can see them or print them out. And I really believe this is a great way to learn English. If you're not really interested in music, maybe it's not, but a lot of people are interested in music, and I think it's a really good way, an entertaining way, a useful way to learn English. Okay, so hopefully you've paused and you've listened to the song, or you've printed out the lyrics. So I'm going to the other thing I should tell you is, if you go into Google and put in the name of the song, Let It Be in this case, and then you put meaning, you'll get all sorts of websites that And actually some of them are sort of forums where people comment on what they think is the meaning of the song. And again, you can learn a lot of English this way. And again, it's natural English. Okay, I'll take my glasses off. Okay, so the first song, Let It Be. Let It Be is one of my favourite Beatles songs. It was written by Paul McCartney in 1969. It begins with Paul saying how when he finds himself in times of trouble was when he's having a hard time, a difficult time, Mother Mary comes to him. I had always thought, this is not me speaking, this is somebody who'd commented on the internet, I had always thought that Mary means the Virgin Mary, the mother of Jesus. But Paul's mother was also named Mary, and she died when he was a young boy. Paul has said in interviews that when he wrote the song, he was thinking about his mother. In the song, Mary comes like an angel, whispering to him these wise words, let it be. Let it be means let go, relax, don't worry about your troubles. These are words of comfort, reminding us not to think about sad things too much, to accept the bad things that have happened that we cannot change. But this is not the only message in Paul's song. Next, he lifts the listener up and out of his own life. Soon he is singing about all the broken-hearted people in the world, people who hate each other or at war. So I did a lesson with Catherine to do with heart. And if you're broken-hearted, it means you're very sad. Or she broke my heart means she finished with me and I was very, very upset or disappointed. Although they may be parted, there is still a chance that they will see. There will be an answer, let it be. This time, the words let it be have a different meaning. Let it be here does not mean to just relax about our problems and accept bad things. It means let it happen. Let some new world, a happier and more peaceful world, become a reality. By the way, this is from the website www.learningfromlyrics.org. When Paul wrote this song in 1969, that's a long time ago, there was violence in Ireland, wars happening in Vietnam and around the world. So he was speaking about sad and angry people who are fighting one another all over the world. We still have situations like this today with broken-hearted people fighting each other in Pakistan and India, Palestine and Israel, and many, many other places. I think this song is Paul McCartney's greatest work. It gives us his vision for peace. It is similar in some ways to the song Imagine, which John Lennon wrote several years later. And Imagine really is a great song. And again, if you Google Imagine John Lennon on YouTube, if you put Imagine and John Lennon on YouTube, you will come up with that song. Both songs give us hope of a happier and more peaceful world. So that is a quick look at Let It Be. Of course, he sings Let It Be a lot of times, and the lyrics are not so difficult to understand. So I'll move on to another Beatles song, which is a lot more difficult. Okay, so at this point, I would recommend you listen to the song by the Beatles, Come Together, and maybe again print out the lyrics. Come Together has a fantastic bass line. Not a lot of people know this, but Paul McCartney is a really, really good bass guitar player, and in a way, he may not be, well, I guess he is, but not as technically brilliant as some bass players. But he just had a knack. A knack is like a skill or an ability to come up with really, really good or catchy bass lines. And in Come Together, the bass line is really, really catchy. Okay, so listen to the song, read the lyrics, and hopefully you've paused at this point. It's up to you, but that's what I would recommend. And then I'm going to read something, and this is from a website called www.songfacts.com. And the guy on this website kind of looks into the different songs in detail. And I will also put on Facebook a cover or a version of this song by Bobby McFerrin, who was famous for Don't Worry, Be Happy, with Robin Williams, who is very famous American actor. Maybe one of his most famous films was Mrs. Doubtfire. This song is from a really, really great album, great CD called In My Life. And if you put it on YouTube, In My Life and George Martin. George Martin was, well, he produced nearly all the Beatles' music. And he was a lot older than them, but he knew a lot about music, and he really made a big difference to the Beatles. But all the songs, the Beatles songs on this album, In My Life, are covers by actresses and different singers. One in particular I like is called In My Life, and it's not sung, it's actually spoken by Sean Connery, who was one of the James Bond actors. Okay, so this is what he has to say, and I'll try and I'll miss bits out because it's quite long. Timothy Leary was a psychologist who became famous for experimenting with LSD as a way to promote social interaction and raise consciousness. Okay, so LSD was a drug very popular in the late 60s. We call it a psychedelic drug, so maybe you see different things and gives you different levels of consciousness. It's not so popular now. Maybe ecstasy is more popular. Leary did many experiments on volunteers and himself and felt that the drug had many qualities if taken correctly. When the government cracked down means try to stop LSD, Leary's experiments were stopped and he was arrested on drugs charges. So again, arrested is a very useful word. When the police come and get you and arrest you, it means you did something wrong and they're going to take you to the police place or prison. And drug charges is you were taking drugs, so now you're going to have to, another idiom I used before, face the music, deal with the situation. In 1969, Leary decided to run for governor of California. Run is a word that keeps coming up in my many lessons. You run a restaurant or you run a business. If you run for governor or run for a position, it means you're trying to become or trying to get that position. And asked John Lennon to write a song for him. Come Together, Join the Party was Leary's campaign slogan. Okay, a slogan is something that you use which hopefully is memorable to people. Okay. And after Timothy Leary decided against using this song, and then John Lennon added some nonsense lyrics. Okay, nonsense is kind of, they don't mean anything. Or another word we could use is gobbledygook. Gobbledygook just means, it doesn't mean anything. They just put in the song or in some other situation. Yeah, they don't mean anything. Okay, in an interview, John Lennon said, the thing or the song was created in the studio. It's gobbledygook. Come Together was an expression that Tim Leary had come up with for and asked me to write a campaign song. A campaign song? Campaign is when you are trying to do something, especially become a politician or a representative, and you have to go out and convince people to vote for you. I tried and tried, but I couldn't come up with them. But I came up with this, Come Together, which would have been no good to him. And you wouldn't have a campaign song like that, right? Interestingly, okay, and I learned all this stuff from Googling this, John Lennon was sued for stealing the guitar riff and the line, Here Comes Old Flat Top, from Chuck Berry's You Can't Catch Me. Okay, if someone sues you, it means they think you have taken something from them, especially with lyrics or property. And obviously you're trying to get some money from them because you stole their idea, or etc. All right. Sorry, there's a lot of writing here. Okay. So finally, this took many years, finally in an attempt to avoid going to court, John Lennon settled with Levi, the guy who, Morris Levi, the guy who was suing him. If you settle out of court, means it doesn't go to court. You just agree on a sum of money, and you just pass it over, kind of privately. So you don't depend on the court deciding how much, which obviously costs a lot of money with lawyers' fees and so on. Okay, and strangely, in return for dropping the suit, dropping means giving up, or let's forget it, Lennon agreed to record his rock and roll album, which was a series of covers of songs Levi owned. And actually this is a really, really good John Lennon album. As it says, they were covers, so John Lennon didn't write them. But they were a lot of his sort of favourite songs, because the Beatles came from a rock and roll background. Okay. A few other interesting things. The whispered lyric that sounds like shoot is, so in the song it goes shoot, ding, 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 ding. It's actually John Lennon saying shoot me, followed by a hand clap. Hand clap is, the bass line drowns out the me. Drowns out means prevents you from hearing. The Beatles recorded this in 1969 and was the first session John Lennon actively participated in, following his and Yoko Ono's car accident 3 weeks early. And John was so insistent on Yoko being in the studio with him that he had a hospital bed set up in the studio for her right after the accident. Okay, now, I don't know how interested you are in the Beatles, but why did the Beatles split up? Why did the Beatles finish? A lot of people actually blame Yoko Ono, John Lennon's Japanese girlfriend, because John Lennon became, well, we could say obsessed with her, and he wanted her to be in the studio when they were recording. But also there are all sorts of theories. John and Paul stopped getting on, and Paul wanted to control the Beatles. It's very... Well, nobody actually knows really why the Beatles split up. Okay, another interesting point. The BBC. The BBC stands for is what the letters mean. The British Broadcasting Company banned this record because of the reference in the song to Coca-Cola, which they considered advertising. So it means they wouldn't play it on the radio, BBC Radio or BBC TV. All right. Okay, I'll just do one other bit from this. I'll put it on Facebook, but there was a very interesting conspiration theory going around at this time that actually Paul McCartney had died. Maybe you don't know that. And there's lots of, reasons for this. And actually, if you look at the Abbey Road album cover, Paul is dressed in a suit with bare feet, which people thought symbolized that he was dead. And some fans of the Beatles thought the line 1 and 1 and 1 is 3 meant that only George, John and Ringo were left. The line "got to be good looking because he's so hard to see" was supposed to mean Paul's spirit. Okay, so Paul McCartney, you could say, was the best looking of the Beatles, but because supposedly he died, you could only see his spirit. All right, so that's come together. Really, really great song. And then we're going to look at another song which maybe the lyrics are not so useful. I mean, how many times are you going to say to somebody, "I am the Walrus" or "I am the Eggman"? But by looking through what's been written about this song, I will come up with lots of useful vocabulary, and hopefully it will encourage you to listen to the song and also print out the lyrics and have a look. And I for me, lyrics are just much more memorable. So yes, as I said, you're not going to use "I am the Walrus," but there are other lyrics in this song or other songs which you can use, and because you remembered them very well, they become very natural to you. I'm just thinking of a song, "You're Beautiful," so of course you could use this to your girlfriend or your boyfriend. Okay, so again, this song, "I Am the Walrus," was written by John Lennon. And actually, of the four Beatles who all wrote songs, but most of the Beatles songs were written by Lennon and McCartney, or later, mostly by John Lennon, or mostly by Paul McCartney, or exclusively. If I had to say, I prefer Paul McCartney's songs most. And then if I had to make a second choice, it would actually be George Harrison, not just in the Beatles, but as a solo artist. I kind of found John Lennon a little bit too troubled and full of problems. But he had a very good way of writing. So this is a little bit of stuff from, again, www.songfacts.com. I don't know who the person is, but actually it's very, very interesting. And this is about the song "I Am the Walrus." So John Lennon wrote this song, and John was throwing together nonsense lyrics to mess with the heads of scholars trying to dissect the Beatles songs. So nonsense lyrics means they don't mean anything, or as I said before, gobbledygook. Scholars are people who study things. And it's true. The Beatles became very important, and people tried to make a study out of the lyrics and so on. They also mention that the song I Am the Walrus is John's answer to Bob Dylan's Getting Away with Murder style of songwriting. So I think this was in the mini lesson with Pete, where he was talking about his daughter, and he said she can get away with murder. It means she can get away with anything. So if she does something bad, because he loves her so much, she can do it. It doesn't actually mean murder. Lennon told Playboy magazine years later that I can write that crap too. Crap is bad things or bad stuff or rubbish. Lennon explains the origins of this song. The first line was written on one acid trip one weekend. Okay, acid trip I explained a little bit with Come Together. It's to do with taking LSD and your experience. The second line was written on the next acid trip, the next weekend, and it was filled in after I met Yoko. Okay, and for example, the reference to elementary penguin is the elementary naive. Naive means innocent attitude of going around chanting Hare Krishna, or putting all your faith in one idol, one God. So he was actually, the Beatles were very influenced by Bob Dylan, and maybe Bob Dylan was influenced by the Beatles. The Beatles were influenced by the Beach Boys. The Beach Boys were influenced by the Beatles. Beatles, Rolling Stones, Beatles, etc. Okay, Lennon got the idea for the oblique lyrics. Oblique means kind of obscure or difficult to understand. When he received a letter from a student who explained that his English teacher was having the class analyse Beatles songs. And John Lennon actually answered that letter, and his reply was sold at auction some years later. Just one other thing about this song. The voices at the end of the song come from a BBC broadcast. A broadcast is when something you put out on TV or the radio, of the Shakespeare play King Lear, which John Lennon heard when he turned on the radio while they were working on the song. He decided to mix bits of the broadcast into the song, resulting in some radio static. Static is kind of just noise, and disjointed bits of dialogue. Disjointed means not clear or not connected. And it comes from King Lear, Act 4, Scene 6, if you're interested. Okay. Oh, one other a bit which might be interesting, and actually I find this very interesting. The idea for the Walrus, I Am the Walrus, came from the poem The Walrus and the Carpenter, which is from the sequel to Alice in Wonderland. Sequel means the following book, usually. Okay, so Alice in Wonderland is a very famous book by Lewis Carroll, and The Walrus and the Carpenter was a poem that came after. In an interview, John Lennon said, "It never dawned on me that Lewis Carroll was commenting on the capitalist and social system. It never dawned on me means it never occurred to me, I never realised. I never went into that bit about what he really meant, like people are doing with the Beatles' work. Later I went back and looked at it and realised the Walrus was the bad guy in the story and the Carpenter was the good guy. I thought, oh shit, I picked the wrong guy. I should have said, I am the Carpenter. But that wouldn't have been the same, would it? So if you sang a song, I am the Carpenter, it doesn't really... Okay, so the camera timed out again. These are actually supposed to be mini lessons, about 10 or 15 minutes, but Hopefully they're useful for you. Okay, just a few more things. From the lyrics of I Am the Walrus, waiting for the van to come means the three remaining Beatles, John, George and Ringo, were waiting for a police van to come. Pretty little policemen in a row. A row means 1, 2, 3, or obviously could be 4, 5, 6, but together. Means policemen did show up, they did come. Goo Goo Gaga Jube were the final words that Humpty Dumpty said before he fell off the wall and died. So I don't know if you know the nursery rhyme, Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. You can find that, of course, on YouTube or Google. And the last thing to say about this is during the fade means the end of a song when the volume goes down. A voice says, "Bury me," which is what Paul might have said after he died. So there really was a lot of stuff around this time about Paul McCartney had died, which, well, I guess some people still believe that, and that Paul McCartney now is an imposter. An imposter means someone who's not really the true person. It's somebody who's in the place of the real person. Okay, so that's 3 Beatles songs today, and hopefully lots of useful vocabulary for you. I hope I encourage you to listen to the songs and the lyrics. I'm also going to put on I Am the Walrus, which was actually on the album I mentioned earlier of covers by actors, actresses and musicians, by George Martin, the Beatles producer, covered by Jim Carrey, who of course is another fantastic Hollywood actor. Maybe his most famous movie was The Mask. So I'd really recommend you listen to this if you're interested in the Beatles or in music in generally. Music in general or music generally. Okay, so maybe before the end of August I'll do another mini lesson with some songs. If you'd like to suggest some songs to me, that would be great. I was thinking of Lady Gaga, Born This Way, but anything you like. Actually, in mini lesson, I think it's 68, I put about 5 songs on to go with the lesson. And the one that has the most likes is Over the Moon, which is the song I least like of the 5. So obviously what I like and what you like are not necessarily the same. But I'm very happy to look at songs which you like. So please let me know. If you're hearing quite a bit of noise, there are a couple of pigeons on my conservatory roof that are fighting. Just to finish, conservatory is something which is very popular in Britain. If you can afford it, you add on a kind of a room or a section to your house, usually at the back, and it's usually mostly glass. And because the British weather is pretty bad, it just adds sort of a living space which is half in the house and half outside. And this is where Louisa, my baby seagull, has been spending the nights. Usually I let her out in the daytime, but I keep an eye on her. Keep an eye on means to sort of watch, pay attention. Okay, so that's today's long mini lesson, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for today.